So I'm Shannon Weber with Hive, and I'm here in Vancouver, Canada at the International AIDS Conference. It's July 2015. Speaking with the amazing
Wangari, Tharao. I'm the Program and Research Manager at Women's Health and Women's Hands, a community health center that works with immigrant, refugee, and women without status from Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and South Asian communities living in Toronto. We provide primary health care, and we have a very large cohort of women living with HIV.
But the whole program is not just for people with HIV, that's just a piece of the clinic, yes?
No. We provide, our HIV services are integrated within a broader health care framework.
Nice.
So we provide regular services that are provided within, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have therapists, we have
the true primary
dietitians, a true primary healthcare setting.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and we've been having this conversation over the last few months, if not maybe the last year, between Toronto and the United States around this topic of the recommendation in both countries for women who are living with HIV to not breastfeed. And you bring up this great point about the story that's happened in the community around this topic for a long time. Tell me about that.
We have known women sometimes are forced to breastfeed, and it's because they don't. It's not because they don't know that they're not supposed to, but there are certain cultural meanings around breastfeeding that are very inherent in the social cultural context within which women come from. Their communities, breastfeeding is viewed as a component of motherhood,
right?
And as the best way to nurture your child. And if you don't seem to be doing it, there are questions around why you're not doing it. And of course, people will assume you're not doing it because you're HIV positive. And so there is this inherent disclosure that you may be positive, but you haven't told anybody. People will just assume that you are. And to be able, due to the stigma that is associated with HIV, people are caught in this dilemma about, if I don't breastfeed, people will assume I am HIV positive. If I breastfeed, I am putting my child at risk. But the side that wins is usually the immediate. That people will know I'm HIV positive. And if you can't deal with stigma, that's where women are usually caught.
Right, and I think caught is a good way of talking about it, because you can get really stuck in that place of being unable to make the decision because the fear around the disclosure or stepping outside your cultural norms or expectations is so big.
Yeah, and it's usually, sometimes women would just say, I just did it that once because my mother-in-law was there and was really insisting that I needed to do it, or my friends were there. I've never told them that I'm HIV positive, and if I didn't breastfeed, they were going to assume or would know that I am. So sometimes it would not be, I'll be breastfeeding on an ongoing basis. It's just to hide the fact that I may be HIV positive.
You mentioned something earlier too that I think is worth noting, which is, so there's that around breastfeeding, but also there's stigma around bottle feeding. That can be that, you've sold out to somebody else's way.
Yeah, it's women say, make comments such as, oh, you've now become a white woman. Yeah. Because they're the ones who are assumed not to breastfeed because you don't want your breast to hang down because of a child hanging out there. Right. And so it's almost you've shifted because you moved from your country of origin. Now you're assuming this you're assuming this new person who is not, you're not worried about your child. You're not a good mother anyway because you're not breastfeeding my child.
So needless to say, the stories around this are big. You know, it's not a small,
It's not a simple,
and it's not a simple decision. How have you, you know, worked to manage this in Toronto? You came to have a community forum around it, and talk about this approach of engaging women in the process.
I think we always knew women were struggling with the issue of breastfeeding, because we run a group for HIV positive women. We've been running for almost 10 years. So HIV positive women meet on a monthly basis. We see women are getting babies, they're living longer, they're more healthy. So reproduction, and it's the right of women to make decisions around whether they want to get children or not.
Right.
But when it comes to breastfeeding, the struggle was always there. We knew women were struggling, but it's not until we had a forum that was organized by Women's Health and a group that is called the Teresa Group that works with children and their families. Our academic partner, Dr. Mona Lutfi, who does a lot of research around preconception, conception, and mothering,
Yes.
Which we've been a part of. So we decided to hold a forum to talk about infant feeding choices within the broader framework of pregnancy planning. And it was at this forum when we had the whole issue came out.
Right.
And people said, of course, women said, of course, women are breastfeeding, and they're breastfeeding because of A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
And so we also had basic scientists talking about breastfeeding from a basic science perspective. And a lot of women were really surprised, because part of they really didn't understand the science of breastfeeding.
Yep.
And how children eventually get infected.
Yep.
And a lot of women are saying, you know what, if I had this information before I made this decision, I would not have done it.
Done it different, yeah.
I would have made a different choice. But the thing, before women are making these choices, because somebody said, I had a child while I was still positive, I breastfed them, and they were negative.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, why won't the second one be negative?
Right.
Too? So so they were, starting to understand the science behind it was really important, and people understanding that if you don't have to make this choice, you can make this one, but that doesn't resolve the issue of cultural issues around breastfeeding, because there's still the stigma associated with HIV. So we realized that women weren't having the information they needed, because in this forum things were being explained in depth. There was time for discussion, there was time to ask
It's a challenging topic. There's a lot to try to understand.
Yeah, so women said, you know what, I really didn't understand, why they were telling me don't breastfeed. I breastfed in Africa, it was fine. I also breastfed here when my other child was born, and it was fine. So there were all these mixed understandings of what it all means. So the issue of health literacy is really, really important. And it's, I think for physicians and doctors who see women, they have to figure out, if you can't do the explaining, refer women to somebody else who can. Because they really need to understand that depth, in-depth information around why breastfeeding is a risk. Yeah. And don't give them flyers, because they might not be able to read.
Right.
So it's important to actually do it in a different way.
I think where there's space to ask questions, think about it, come back. I don't think it's a one-time thing, because it's so big. I'm going to get the information, go home, I'm going to end up going, well, what about this, what about that? Because you have to sort through.
The other piece is around how do you help women come up with good explanations about why they're not breastfeeding? Yes. Because they may get an understanding of why it's not safe. Yeah. But when you go into your community you haven't disclosed to your families. Yes.
You need a story.
You would need a story, and a good one.
Yes. How do you do that with women? To give me some examples.
A story that is well put together, that is coherent, that doesn't change with situations, because people will say, oh, she's not telling the truth because yesterday she said this and the following day she said this. So it has to be a good story that you stick with. We have a really good midwife in Toronto who actually starts to help women develop those stories even before they deliver.
Right. So important to plan.
Yeah. So you plan ahead, and sometimes she'll say, "Oh, my doctor said I should not breastfeed because I have cracked nipples." People won't ask you to show me your breast.
Yeah, they don't want to know about that.
These cracked nipples are actually bleeding, and it's getting mixed up with the milk, and until that has healed, I can't do it. And then when it heals, you can always tell them, you know what?
It dried up.
It dried up.
Yeah.
So it's those type of scripts that are based on some truth.
Yeah.
That women can actually tell their families.
So that then they aren't hiding or holding back, and they can move about in their community freely. Yeah. It's really beautiful. What do you think next steps are around this topic?
I think it's to think about how do you help women develop those scripts, because the issues still remain.
The cultural
stigma
pieces,
and cultural pieces still remain. It's how do you help them navigate
that's
those
beautiful.
cultural pieces. The other piece is how do you coming up with a good education program for women who even before they deliver. So
absolutely before, yes.
What are the risks around breastfeeding? The other piece is around how do you keep women engaged? And I think one of the things we have learned is, because we have a group where women talk, they support each other.
Beautiful.
So they support each other. How do you ensure you create that environment where women can actually support each other during that time of post-delivery?
Yeah.
At a time when they're very, sometimes
it's a huge transition. Yes.
They're first-time mothers. They're struggling with so many issues. HIV is just one of the components. The other piece is around how do you ensure women have access to formula, or or maybe donated milk.
Yes, I love this. It's really about the navigation piece, right? It's not just giving the instruction and expecting that she goes off and all goes well. It's like it's navigating the pieces so that it fits together with her life. I really like that.
Yeah. So the issue around affordability of formula. In Ontario, the Ontario government provides formula for the first year of life of a child. But the assumption is that children need the same amount. So some women will have children who drink more. So the formula does not last a month. So they're forced to actually buy to substitute what they get from the program. Majority of the women that I see are living in poverty. They're just, even having enough money to feed their children is a big problem. So how do you help them supplement what may be provided by the government? Some provinces in Canada don't provide formula for women. You're supposed to buy it for yourself. So affordability of alternative infant choices
has to be built into this. Thank you. You're amazing. Thank you so much for your contributions to this topic and to women's lives and helping us do a better job of serving women.
You're welcome.
Thank you.